Good evening, and welcome to Northern Middle School for our May meeting, May 9th, 2023. I'd like to thank each of you for attending this evening. Sorry we're a little bit late, but we had our agenda, executive session was longer than perhaps we anticipated. First, we would ask you to stand for a moment of silence to be followed by our student member to the board leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. There's been several changes on our agenda. If you're following along, I'll need to make those announcements before I ask for a motion to accept. First change will be under continuing business. We're moving continuing business, the update to the Gradeband presentation. That's going to follow the Garrett County Teacher of the Year presentation. We will move that up earlier. We're also going to leave the rest of the continuing business where it is on the agenda, which has the superintendent's proposed FY24 operating budget for our review. And then the last change in the agenda will be under interim superintendent search update. That will now say interim superintendent decision for action. Okay, with those things said, I'll take a motion on the amended agenda.
Make a motion for the amended agenda.
Motion by Jason.
Second.
Second by Matthew. Discussion? All those in favor of the amended agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And we do have an agenda. And I guess now we're at closed session summaries. I don't think there was a consent agenda. Oh, the minutes. I'm sorry. We don't have a minute. Well, yeah, it's part of our consent agenda will be the minutes from our previous meeting last month. So we'll need to pass the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent
Motion
agenda.
to approve by Matthew.
Second.
Seconded by Jason. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And the consent agenda is approved. Now we'll move on to closed session summaries.
Board of Education. The Board of Education met in executive session on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 3:03 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following items: review of executive session minutes, personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1, negotiation topics pursuant to 3-305B9, and administrative function topics. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to go into executive session, and Josh Heinbaugh seconded the motion. Final resolution, the motion carried with yea votes from Rodney Glotfelty, Josh Heinbaugh, Matthew Paugh, and Jason Van Sickle. Jason Van Sickle made a motion to approve the executive session agenda, and Josh Heinbaugh seconded the motion. Final resolution, motion carried with yea votes from Rodney Glotfelty, Josh Heinbaugh, Matthew Paugh, and Jason Van Sickle. The topics discussed in the closed session included the following: personnel, certificated staffing. Dr. Jane Wildison, Director of Human Resources, presented a staffing recommendation to the board for their approval. The board took action on this topic in the public session under the consent agenda. Manager of Safety and Security, Dr. Jane Wildison, Director of Human Resources, Ms. Barbara Baker, Superintendent, provided an update on filling the Manager of Safety and Security position. The board did not take action on this topic. Superintendent search, the board discussed the superintendent search. The board did not take action on this topic. Negotiation, salary parameters, Mrs. Allison Schweitzer, Director of Finance, Dr. Jane Wildison, Director of Human Resources, shared proposed FY 2024 salary parameter information with the board for all bargaining units. Consideration of proposed contract language, Dr. Wildison and Mrs. Schweitzer shared proposed contract language changes for GAFT, GASA Unit 1 and Unit 3 bargaining groups. The board took action on each of the negotiation topics in the public session under the consent agenda. Administrative function, the board discussed administrative function topics. The board considered these topics but did not take any action on these items. Adjournment, Jason Van Sickle made a motion to adjourn the executive session and Rodney Glatfelty seconded the motion. Motion carried with yea votes from Rodney Glatfelty, Josh Heinbaugh, Matthew Paw, and Jason Van Sickle. The board adjourned the executive session at 5:52 p.m. Mr. Tom Woods, Board President, Mr. Rodney Glatfelty, Board Vice President, and Board members, Mr. Josh Heinbaugh, Dr. Matthew Paw, and Mr. Jason Van Sickle attended the meeting. Mrs. Barbara Baker, Superintendent, Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, Dr. Nicole Miller, Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Allison Schweitzer, Director of Finance, Mr. Paul Edwards, Director of Secondary Education, and Mrs. Karen Brewer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, attended all or part of the meeting. Okay, announcements. We have quite a few announcements this evening. May 10th through 12th, starting tomorrow evening, the Western Maryland Teacher of the Year in-person retreat will be taking place in various locations throughout Garrett County. May 11th, the fourth grading period progress reports will be released. May 15th, there's a May Board Service Academy, new laws passed in 2023 affecting your school system, implications and opportunities virtually from 9 to 12. May 16th, staff development, 3-hour early dismissal. May 24th, May Board Service Academy, parliamentary procedures, maximizing the benefits and rewards virtually from 9 to 12 p.m. May 29th, Memorial Day, schools will be closed. May 31st is the seniors' last day of school. June 3rd, high school graduation, Garrett County Ag Hall building in McHenry, Northern Garrett High School at 10 a.m., Southern Garrett High School at 2 p.m. June 6th will be the Garrett County Public Schools retirement dinner, Dutchess at Silvertree at 6 p.m. June 7th will be another MABE Board Service Academy, Ethics, What You Most Need to Know, virtually from 9 to 12. June 12th, students will be dismissed 3 hours early. June 13th will be the students' last day of school, also a 3-hour early dismissal. And June 14th will be the teacher's last day with professional day. And reminder, please check the school activities calendar for a number of end-of-year important testing dates, school ceremonies, and other performances at each school level. Thank you.
We'll now move to our recognitions. Our first, I'm sorry, we did move that on our agenda from last month. We started doing that. Alexis, defer to you.
So as we're nearing the end of the year, things are starting to wind down, but GCSC held their last General Assembly April 26th at Garrett College. During the assembly, Natalie Warren and I conducted a workshop on leadership where student council members learned the characteristics of a good leader. Mr. Humboldt, the Director of Student Services for the Board of Education, also talked with the students, and Ms. Moss had a discussion on the reopening and recovery plan, where students gave input on what was good about the plan and recommendations for improvement. The GCSE officer elections were conducted, and the 3 seniors on the executive board were recognized and given graduation cords. Overall, GCSE had a very successful year and is already working on plans for the summer and for next school year. Within the local student councils, Southern Student Council just wrapped up Teacher Appreciation Week, where teachers were provided with lunch last Thursday, May 4th. They also conducted elections for the upcoming school year, and currently the council is planning a volleyball event that is scheduled for May 26th. Northern Student Council also just wrapped up their event for Teacher Appreciation Week, where they worked with different clubs in the school to provide the teachers with different treats each day. They also conducted elections for the next school year and are continuing their work in organizing a field day scheduled for late May. Just some general student updates. On April 28th, there was a teen safety assembly at Southern High School, and both Southern and Northern High School had proms the past 2 weeks. They seemed to be a very big success and had a lot of positive feedback. Southern High School's theater program is performing their spring play Spamalot at the Performing Arts Center at Garrett College, May 11th, 12th, and 13th. And last Friday, Southern had a senior movie night in the library where they got to watch Grown Ups.
Members, questions, any comments? Or Alexis? No? Okay, great. The board did meet earlier this evening and interviewed 2 applicants to take Alexis' job. Next month will be Alexis' last day on the job for us. And we did meet two young ladies this evening. Both of them were wonderful to interview and wonderful students. The board has chosen Haley Wildison from Northern Garrett High School as our student member to the board next year. Haley will invite her to come in June, so you can pass the mantle as such to her. And we're excited to have Haley as a part of our family up here. So congratulations to Haley. Our first recognition is one that I will do. It's the National Board Certification of Teachers. This is a very, very difficult thing to achieve, and we're certainly very proud of the huge number of teachers that we already have as a part of that program, and as I understand, a large number of teachers who are in the pipeline to become nationally board certified. So we're very happy that we have a staff of teachers in our county that want to continue to progress. The board will recognize 6 teachers this evening for obtaining national board certification. The National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, National Board, is a not-for-profit professional organization created and governed by practicing teachers and their advocates. The founding mission of the National Board is to advance the quality of teaching and learning by maintaining high and rigorous standards for what accomplished teachers should know and be able to do, providing a national voluntary system, certifying teachers who meet these standards, and advocating related education reforms to integrate national board certification into American education and to capitalize on the expertise of national board certified teachers. Recognized as the gold standard in teacher certification, the National Board believes higher standards for teachers means better learning for students. Candidates must demonstrate advanced knowledge, skills, and practice in their individual certificated area by completing 4 components: 3 portfolio entries and a computer-based assessment. Since the year 2000, Garrett County Public Schools has had 19 teachers who have achieved this gold standard by meeting National Board Certification status. Currently, there are 11 educators that hold the National Board Certification in our school system. And once again, not only do we have those 11, but we also have a large number of teachers throughout the county who hopefully will be recognizing in the years to come. So once again, we're very proud of the efforts of these teachers and the time that it took to do that. When I was at Southern High School, Heather Savage was one of the first people, if not the first person, to be nationally board certified. I taught right beside Heather for a while, and I remember watching her groan every day about how much work she was putting into that. So I know it's a very difficult achievement. So congratulations to each of you.
You want them, and you want them to see it.
Handheld mic.
Right there. Nicole, hand Mr. Woods the.
For the recording. Oh, okay. See, I can yell, some of you know. Erica Foley. Catherine Landon. Ollie Schlip. And Amy Warnick.
Dr. Wilderson has been instrumental in guiding the process and will continue with all of those candidates that you spoke about. So I just wanted to publicly thank her because it is a lot of work and she's done a great job.
We do maintain at the board office a plaque of the teachers who have achieved that certification. I will say, we're going to need a new plaque. So congratulations once again. Next, we'll have our second recognition, which is the National School Nurse Day Proclamation, May 10th, 2023. And Mr. Gladfeldy will make that.
Hi. It's certainly my pleasure to recognize the nurses that are really an important part of our school system. And I know during my career, I've probably worked with hundreds of nurses, and and the most significant nurse I've worked with is my wife. And so I know how dedicated this group of individuals are, and you know, it's a pleasure for me to actually give this proclamation out to the nurses that work in the Garrett County School. So, being that said, this is May 10th, 2023. Whereas students are the future, and by investing in them today, we are ensuring our world for tomorrow. And whereas families deserve to feel confident that their children will be cared for when they are at school. And whereas students today face complex and life-threatening health problems requiring care in school. And whereas school nurses have served a critical role in improving public health and ensuring students' academic success for more than 120 years. Whereas school nurses address the home and community factors, social determinants that impact students' health, and whereas school nurses are professional nurses that advance the well-being, academic success, and lifelong achievement of all students by serving on the front lines and providing a critical safety net for our nation's most fragile children. And whereas school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, families, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health and promoting wellness and improving health outcomes for our nation's children. And whereas school nurses support the health and educational success of children and youth, providing access to care when children's cognitive development is at its peak. And whereas school nurses understand the link between health and learning and are in a position to make a positive difference for every child. Therefore, be it resolved that the Garrett County Board of Education celebrates and acknowledges the accomplishments of school nurses everywhere, particularly in Garrett County, and their efforts of meeting the needs of today's students by improving the delivery of health care in our schools, and offers gratitude for the nation's school nurses who contribute to our local community by helping students stay healthy in school and ready to learn, and keeping parents and guardians at work, not just on this National School Nurse Day, but at every opportunity throughout the year. Therefore, the Garrett County Board of Education hereby proclaims May 10th, 2023 as National School Nurse Day and celebrate its observance in Garrett County. So I think Becky is here. Becky Aiken. Come with me. Mr. Hummel.
Highly qualified, hardworking nurses will accept this on their behalf.
That we have a great set of nurses and they do amazing work each and every day to keep our schools safe and healthy, and we appreciate every one of them and their hard work, and Mrs. Aiken helping to supervise them, because there's a lot of things that I don't know about the nursing field that I lean on their expertise.
And they've been through a lot in the last 2 or 3 years, haven't you?
Our final presentation, recognition will be made by our superintendent, is the Garrett County Teacher of the Year.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Woods. I don't get to usually make these recognitions, so this is actually quite an honor for me, and I appreciate you asking me. Our Garrett County Teacher of the Year for the next school year is Miss Allie Shilp. Okay. Miss Allie Shilp, media specialist at Northern Garrett Middle School, has been selected as the 2023-2024 Garrett County Public Schools Teacher of the Year. This prestigious award is a reflection of her incredible dedication and commitment to her students and to the field of education. Allie is a national board certified teacher and has been a library media specialist for 21 years. Her work experiences include 3 different school libraries in Baltimore and in Garrett County. Allie strives to make the Northern Middle Library the heart of the school. It is a place to engage every learner with inquiry-based instruction, connections with notable authors, and collaborations with content area teachers that foster multiple literacies. She was School Library Journal's 2018 School Librarian of the Year, received the 2019 Betty Rommelmeyer Advocate Award from the Children's Literature Center, and is a LEGO Education Ambassador. Allie earned a master's degree in instructional technology with a K-12 certification from Towson University and a bachelor's degree in theater and digital media from Stevenson University. Allie's passion for teaching and her commitment to her students are evident in everything she does. She has been instrumental in implementing innovative teaching methods to enhance learning experiences. She has inspired her students to think creatively, solve problems, and work collaboratively. Mrs. Shilp will now compete for the Maryland State Teacher of the Year, which will be announced this coming fall. Please join me in thanking Mrs. Allie Shilp, our Teacher of the Year. I don't want to jinx it, but I think we have a very good candidate for possible Maryland State Teacher of the Year. And I say that very sincerely. So thank you. I don't know if you want to say a few words. Sure.
This is an honor. Thank you, Mr. Yoder, for nominating me. That meant a lot to me. And I really, really love what I do. I've always said if there's one thing I did right is I picked a really good husband and I picked an awesome job. So thank you so much.
Okay, as we said earlier, we're going to move continuing business up now, and it's the continuing business part that's the grade band alignment update. Superintendent has something that she wants to say first before we do any of the update.
Thank you. As I think everybody in the room well knows, the grade band decision has been worked on and debated, and we've presented a tremendous amount of information to the communities, to the stakeholders, to the board. But because I will be retiring and we'll have an interim superintendent, we've decided I've been working with the board, and we've decided to pump the brakes on the grade band decision, see how the interim superintendent weighs in on the grade band decision, because there are implications for some of the smaller community schools. We all feel like it was best to pause that, keep all the work and all of the information, and continue to collect information, some of the stakeholder feedback that we received on the benefits and some of the pitfalls of the grade band recommendation. So we will be doing the presentation maybe a little bit more briefly, but we didn't want to kind of leave it out there without providing an update to the board. And then when the interim superintendent begins his or her tenure, they will certainly have all of this information to work with the team to see, what we'd like to do moving forward. So I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Miller. And again, we may go through it a little more briefly, but we have decided to, at least pause that decision for now until we, time decide to just continue to explore it. So, Dr. Miller, if you want to go. Did you want to say anything else?
All right, so by the end of today's presentation, we will be sharing updates specific to grade banding for the North and the South. We will be sharing information specific to the current forecast for GCPS and discuss some of the immediate priorities. I'm not going to go through this word by word, but this is where we stand as far as our current forecast for the northern area. We've obviously done several community meetings, one in January, one in March. We've done work in between those meetings where we worked on cost estimates. Grimm and Parker and GCPS collaborated quite a bit during that time. And we also worked on gathering a lot of information to address items that were raised in the January meeting, but also other stakeholder feedback that had come in. And we presented that in March. In April, we did provide the elected board a renovation cost estimate, and then the memo, as you can see. And you heard, obviously, Ms. Baker's announcement that we did shift our work after the April board meeting to some different priorities, hoping to know a little bit more tonight on where we were headed in going into the next fiscal year. So that's where we currently stand with the work completed on the northern area grade band. On the southern area grade band, we obviously have a board vote that was approved, I believe it was September this past fall, and we are actively moving forward with a pre-K through 6, 7 through 12 grade band on the southern end of the county. You can see in March, we awarded the Southern High Limited Renovation and HVAC Award. We also have conducted work with the architecture and engineer team at Southern High School for the work in that project. They've spent several days there. Mr. Waslowski's been leading that work, and I've been involved as well. Very good work happening there. They've engaged several staff members, both middle school staff and high school staff, to ensure that we get that work done well and done correctly in order to meet all of the needs that we'll have instructionally. We also last month the board announced the bid award for Southern Elementary School, and we are meeting next week with the successful architects, BFM, and we'll be launching that project together next week. Also wanted to provide an IAC update specifically for the Southern End. The IAC does have a meeting this Thursday, May 11th. The Southern High School limited renovations and Southern Middle School renovation, which sometimes we refer to as Southern Elementary School, are both an A status, which means they're recommended for approval. That's very important. That's excellent news for Garrett County. And I also want to share that on February 9th, 2023, the IAC authorized 90% of the funding for those projects. So we already have the authorization from the IAC for 90% of the funding. The remaining 10% is expected to be authorized Thursday for the total allotment of $7,262,000. And the scaffolded timeline of when they authorize funding is just part of their normal operating procedure. So I did want to share that. Okay, so this slide starts a series of slides that really is looking at the current forecast and moving forward, things that the board and that our staff in Garrett County Public Schools are going to have to consider as we navigate our future. As we indicated earlier, right now we're moving forward on the south with a pre-K through 6, 7 through 12 grade band. On the north, we're pausing, so we have the traditional grade band. And so between that and the student funding, the weighted student funding, there are several considerations and implications that we are going to have to work through. Some of the items on this list are a result of grade banding in one area, adopting a grade band in the southern end and keeping the current grade band in the northern end. But there are also some of these factors are also a result of student weighted funding. Some have both factors that are causing these things to be issues that we're going to have to navigate and work through. I'm not going to read all of them. Most of them we have seen before or discussed before at some point or another. However, one of the things we are going to have to really look at is how do we mitigate these? How do we work through this process and mitigate to the best of our ability in order to ensure quality programming across our entire county? These are some additional factors that we'll need to work through. Again, I'll let you all read them. I'll tell you where this is posted at the end of the presentation. One that we haven't spoken about too much are the variances in the 6th grade programming that will need to be a careful consideration as we work forward, specifically with schedules, the types of programming, etc. These are some additional items that will need to be considered and worked through. The first, master schedule implications specific to instructional times. One of the things that the lead team's discussing and that we feel is extremely likely is that the secondary schedule will need to change countywide. If it changes on one end of the county, it is likely going to need to change on the other end of the county, and that is to mitigate variances in instructional time so that we can ensure that students are getting very comparable instructional times as they work towards learning their content standards. We also are anticipating needing to have a consistent schedule to meet requirements of the blueprint and to better mitigate some of the implications that you saw on the earlier slides relative to 8th grade having access to high school classes, high school credits, and such. We do also anticipate several other challenges, which I won't go through all of them. I would note the challenges surrounding common PLC times as we move towards the blueprint. The implementation of professional learning communities, that's what PLC stands for. That time and job embedded PD will be required with a very strong systemic structure that is going to need to be in place. And we're starting that work, but that is going to be something that we need to consider, which will have some complexity to it when it comes to scheduling across the county. The other one that I will draw attention to is the implementation of the career ladder with the 60%, 40% teaching requirement piece. That is going to be a challenge across the county, across the state, but anticipated to be a more significant challenge, especially at the north and at Swan Meadow with a limited staff. This is a picture of what a possible path might look like for the Northern Area student. This is based on current forecast and the decisions that have currently been made as of today. This could change as we move forward, but this would give the viewer an idea of what could be expected at each of the grade bands as we work through the process. And again, the same on the southern area, pre-K through 6, 7 through 12 grade band, and the forecast related to that. Again, I won't go through every single bullet point, but this presentation is currently uploaded on board docs under this agenda item, and we will make sure that Mr. Green has it on the website under the grade band alignment where all of our other documentation is for our grade band conversations. So I'll conclude with the final slide. I referenced earlier that we shifted some of our work and priorities. We do have several immediate priorities that we are going to need to undertake as we move forward into next year. Secondary master schedule planning is one significant one. We have to have that work done by about Christmas next year for it to be a viable option and ready to go for Southern High School. And like I said before, we will be looking at a common master schedule. So the North and the South will have stakeholder input into that, teachers, school staff. We've even talked about parents and students as well to get input, and then we'll come up with a plan. So the career ladder is going to be required in our next submission of the blueprint. That's a huge lift, and that is going to need to start taking a significant priority, as will job embedded professional development and professional learning community structures, and hashing that out and understanding how that's going to look in our county as we move forward. The fiscal 25 budget planning process is going to need to start very soon, and clearly, I had mentioned earlier that Southern High School and Southern Elementary School renovation work, huge projects there that we're going to need to continue to move forward and keep our thumb on. So with that, I will conclude and entertain any questions if there are any.
Questions for Dr. Miller on the data presentation? Hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Once again, as the superintendent expressed, we have taken a position to put a pause on moving forward until we have a new interim superintendent in place, and that person has a chance to look at what has been done, what are the obstacles lying ahead, and see if there is some new input as to ways that we may navigate some of the problems that we see going forward with our school system. So again, thank you, Dr. Miller, all of those people who served with you to get the information that we have, and certainly we'll keep all that information, and certainly those of you who have participated from as parents and interested folks in trying to guide this process to this point. But we'll see where the process goes over the next months to come. With that being said, we are at public comment stage at 7.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Our student board member has an AP biology, so I think if it's okay with the board, we'll excuse her to go study for her AP test.
I don't know. I taught AP history. We always made fun of the AP biology things because that was easy. Anybody could do AP biology, but yeah. AP history is a whole different thing. Okay, I'll give in. Thank you. Good luck. I know how hard those tests are. Good luck. Yeah, study hard. Our first speaker is Linda Bradley, who wants to speak about Swan Meadow staffing.
Good evening. I'm starting before my 3 minutes show up. I'm not.
Please be reminded, as council reminded me, please do not use any names. When you're talking about staffing, you may only talk
Right.
about
I won't. But thank you for
positions,
the reminder.
but not names.
I can say the position, but not the
Yes,
name.
yes, correct.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm not here tonight to debate every detail about Swan Meadow, but I want to stress the inequitable way the staff and students are being treated. In this, perhaps its final year, Swan Meadow needs to succeed as it has for over 100 years with very high test scores and good academic and social achievement. It is incumbent upon the board and perhaps the commissioners to make sure that Swan Meadow is supported as well as all other schools. What other elementary school will have either 4 or 5 grades in one classroom or no principal? If the plan to cut staffing had been told beforehand to the school advisory committee, they could have perhaps found a solution. How is it equitable to staff or students to have time to prepare or teach 4 or 5 different grade levels and curricula? It could appear to the casual observer that the board does not want Swan Meadow to succeed. The blueprint states that race and ethnicity must be considered. If Swan Meadows students were of a racial instead of a cultural minority, the issue could be raised that under blueprint, by law, Swan Meadow needs equitable resources, meaning a certified teacher for each grade, or 1 up to 3 grades as Swan Meadow has had in the past, and a principal, not a decrease in staff. If new teachers are being hired or are being transferred from Swan Meadow, it must be because new positions were created or some teachers were promoted. But how are we fostering every student's achievement and protecting every student's right to an excellent education? Are all of these promotions or new positions, such as the assistant principal at Yacht Glades, for instance, absolutely necessary in light of what will occur at Swan Meadow? The blueprint states that by law, a base amount needs to be allotted for a child's education to be spent at his or her school. The approximately $8,600 allotted for next year is a base, not a limit. Even if a child is not officially designated as special needs, etc., so they would not qualify for more money, how can we be sure that some children who could be helped by the additional amount over $8,600 could not be adversely affected by the decrease in the staffing? I realize that staffing decisions need to be made early, but in the interest of fairness for staff and students across all of Garrett County, surely several more weeks or a couple of months can be spared to make some adjustments to the severe cuts at Swan Meadow, which will likely lead to a decrease in the school's excellent test scores and the good morale enjoyed by all students and staff. Please help Swan Meadow succeed in this, perhaps its final year. Because Swan Meadow might apply to become a charter school, the collection of, oh, sorry. Can I say one more paragraph? Sure. Thank you. Because they might apply to become a charter school, the status quo should be maintained for another year, as it stands now with the staffing. The collecting of signatures of support is to see if the board would support the idea before much work, energy, time, and money is invested in this process. It is to avoid what happened when Kitzmiller Elementary applied to become a charter school. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Radley. Our next speaker is Bethany Hayhurst, wants to talk about grade banding.
Good evening. The question has been asked over and over, why was the grade band decision made independently on the southern end without any regard to the northern end? Who initiated this? The Central Board of Ed and elected Board of Ed seem to take different stances on how this played out and came to be. Regardless of whether anyone takes responsibility or gives the community an explanation, the decision has further driven a wedge between the two ends of the county and between GCPS and the community. Instead of working in unison, we're at odds. I was recently at my niece's softball game. It was Northern versus Southern, and a discussion came up about grade band and public comment, etc. A Southern parent made the remark, the Southern end has been dealing with overcrowding, school closures, and large classroom sizes for years. It's about time the Northern end gets the same thing. So to any Southern parents that are here tonight or listening, I want you to know that we, the Northern end parents, don't want that for you and your kids either. All of our students deserve the very best that public school education has to offer. They all deserve the unique opportunities that our rural community schools in Garrett County have to offer. In the posted presentation that Nicole just went over, the divide and hostility roar again. You show a list of all the wonderful things that Southern gains after the proposed grade band was pushed through, accompanied by a list of all the downfalls happening on the northern end. The slides appear as punishment for the northern end for not conforming to the decision that we were given no chance to be a part of. I do appreciate the pause, but I'm also concerned because I know that the Central Board of Ed has been adamant that grade bands on the north and south should match to address things like Nicole said, variances in instructional time, consistent schedules, etc. So I wonder if this pause is going to get us anywhere, because we're not changing, we're not pausing the decision on the southern end. We're not bringing the community back together to try to make a decision that would work for both. So is the pause going to get us any further ahead, or is it just pushing it off on the interim superintendent to make the same hard decision that Ms. Baker was going to have to make? I would ask that you give the community all of the detailed information on the grade bands that were looked at, especially pre-K through 4, 5 through 7, and 8 through 12. Give us a list of pros and cons to each. Share with us the information that you have, that you feel like you were able to make an educated decision to suggest this grade band in the first place. Give us all of the information so that we're not running in circles trying to find out something that you may already know. I would ask that you would be open to additional options and willing to invest time into exploring them. I think it's the least our kids deserve.
I will take a moment to answer a couple of your questions. I think the pause is your final statement, so that we can look at every possible option may not have been explored at the moment or that we're aware of. Our interim superintendent may have ideas that we've not thought of as a group. I think we as a board and as the superintendent expressed, we don't take the decision lightly. We know it's a tough decision. We know we're trying to work with a blueprint. It's laying out the law to us, what we must do, and at the same time trying to find a way to give the best education possible with the resources that we have. In terms of the southern end decision, that was a decision that the southern end, quite frankly, bought into immediately. That's all I can say. When we had public hearings, there were 2 people who showed up for the public hearing, 1 in favor, 1 against. That was the public meeting. We cannot go back on that decision, obviously, as I think you heard tonight. We've already spent a lot of money that the state has given us. They've already approved that, so we could not consider going back. We've signed contracts. So in terms of why is there a division, I don't know. I don't know, but we're going to work hard to try to fix it. I give you my pledge that we're going to work hard to try to fix that, to ensure that everybody in our county realizes we're trying to do the best for every student in our county. But I will say this, as I said before, it's difficult. When you lose money in your family, first thing you have to do is make cuts. When we don't have enough money, first thing we have to do is find how can we cut? What can we do? Because we have to have a balanced budget too by law. So I hope that answers some of your concerns, but I will pledge this, as board members, we want to investigate every possibility before a decision is made. That's one of the reasons for the pause, so we can investigate every possibility. Okay?
Appreciate it.
Jessica Beachy, I'd like to speak about Swan Meadow staffing.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to have just a few moments to address a few issues that are concerning for the 23-24 school year. I'm a parent of a child at Swan Meadow School, a substitute teacher, and I was also a member of the advisory committee for Swan Meadow closure. We were tasked with advising for the closure or continued operation of Swan Meadow for the upcoming school year. We were given guidelines and specific topics to report on in our presentation. In the process of gathering information and facts to base that report on, we spent countless hours in communication with central office. We were presented with two options: close the school and the teachers would be relocated, or keep it open. There were never any alternative structures for staff presented for consideration if the school stayed open. Many of the members of the committee, including myself, were completely blindsided by the inclusion of the much reduced staffing in the superintendent's recommendation at the April 11th meeting. The classroom structure that is currently in place at Swan Meadow is very demanding for the teachers that are currently teaching, but they're still achieving the highest test scores in the county. By adding this additional burden of changing to only 2 classrooms, the teachers will be further stretched to a now impossible length. There will be no longer a principal at all. The math teacher position, who successfully teaches all 9 grades, will be eliminated. The current secretary will now have to assume all the responsibilities of nurse, cafeteria staff, media teacher, classroom assistant, and secretary. Of the 2 remaining teachers, one of them will have all of the responsibilities of a principal, plus have a full classroom duty, but only be paid at a teacher rate. Why was this alternative plan never even mentioned to the advisory committee in the 4 months leading up to the recommendation by the superintendent? How was it just automatically enacted without prior discussion or a separate vote? Because the superintendent's recommendation was denied, why wasn't this also denied? Was it voted on in a closed session? How can more time needed to study Swan Meadow happen effectively under these circumstances? Would the board be able to assess the school correctly if everything about the staffing is suddenly changed this way? The current model will scare more parents into withdrawing their children from the school because they'll be concerned they aren't receiving a fair education. Was that the superintendent's plan? To push our community into failing to succeed. For over 100 years, Swan Meadow has flourished and exceptionally educated the children in our area, and this looks like an attempt to prove that it can't continue by forcing failure. Please consider all of these issues and the detrimental impact that they will have on Swan Meadow if enforced. Is there truly no other way to keep it funded and fully staffed this year? I implore you to seriously consider the necessity of this restructuring and how it will harm the staff, parents, and most importantly, the children. Thank you.
Stephanie Boyd, communication.
Good evening. My public comment is on communication. The art of conversation is the art of hearing as well as being heard, and I do feel like you have heard us by kind of pumping the brakes and allowing us some time to share some ideas. But I was looking back through some of the old presentations, and on March 8th of 2022, there was a presentation that was presented called Communication Strategies. And some of those things in there mention early and often communication, keeping abreast of current events that affect stakeholders. Things like that that you have mentioned sometimes seem to be falling through the cracks. Some of the enhancements that I would suggest include a GCPS newsletter. We receive great information from our school principals, but as a district in a public school system, we don't receive a whole lot of information unified, and that might be something that can help with the northern and southern end. It also mentioned community focus groups. I know we had the school closure acts and some of those mandated groups, but how about just like a school improvement team or a parent involvement team or something that does not have to be so decisive and so confrontational? Just some kind of peaceful presentation. That also mentioned an annual feedback survey. Don't think that I have received one of those, and if that is coming, I wasn't sure if there was a timeline for that. Another thing that I would highly suggest would be an employee engagement survey. I know a lot of the staff that I've communicated with behind closed doors are a little bit, they don't want to speak up. They don't want to speak up to their bosses. They don't want to ruffle the feathers of their leaders. I know as a previous manager at the hospital, that was a tool that we used that was completely anonymous. You really got some great information, but could also devise some great action plans on how to move forward in areas that needed improvement. So thank you for listening and hearing us as we ask you to pump the brakes, but I know our work is not done. Working together, I think we really can identify some areas that we can improve, and I look forward to continuing those conversations.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's my understanding that the survey is forthcoming. It's not there yet, but it is forthcoming. Michael Henderson, Swan Meadow.
Howdy. My name's Mike Henderson. The polls and the grade band alignment, that changes everything I was going to say. Except for something that we probably ought to address is on Swan Meadows, if you can find this sheet, conditions of school, is totally wrong. You will find, just before that, the IAC report from the October beforehand, ranking it at 46. I think that's what it says. 49. That's a significant difference to say Swan Meadows is the worst school in the state. I don't know who wrote that. You didn't find it? That's here on this page. Right, it's saying that the condition of that school is the worst in the state. That's knee-jerk reaction that should have been called. The other thing that you may want to draw attention to is if you can find this page. You can find this. When we talk about declining enrollment, if I take the population of the school and add it to the homeschoolers, come with that flat line across the top. They are leaving the schools, but they are not leaving the county. I encourage you to fact check that. But what I would say to you is that pausing the grade band alignment is a wise thing to do, but you didn't go far enough. Moving the pre-K children out of the schools and consolidating them is causing great hardship on parents. I've seen reports of people are talking about they have children in 2 different schools. They got pre-K and grade, and they got to drop them off at 2 different schools. You have a lot of intelligent people here. You can use crowdsource, use these brains that have been working. Northern has had short amount of time. Swan Meadows needs to remain as it is so that they can allow them time to explore the idea of becoming a charter school. They may not do it, they may not want to do it, but they should at least have the opportunity. Thank you.
Michael. Our next speaker is Tara Crawford. Grade band alignment.
Woo! This is exciting.
Thank you all very much for the last several months of listening to us, hearing us, responding to our emails, providing us with information. I'm excited about the opportunities that await us in the next several months, getting to know the new superintendent and understanding what this fresh start might look like. Much work still to be done, as Stephanie said. Some of my public comment is no longer relevant, but I think that it's good to go ahead and state some of the experiences that we've had to this point as we move forward in an effort to try to better the situation. So similar to Stephanie, but unplanned, I want to talk a little bit about communication. It is my belief that it's my belief that communication is key to resolving almost any conflict we encounter. Ineffective communication can lead to difficulties in preparation, understanding, and working toward a common goal, which I believe that we do have. In the past several months, numerous parents and community members have been seeking to understand the proposed changes that GCPS may implement in the educational landscape for our current and future students. These proposals have ranged from school closures to realigned grade bands, facilities changes, and potentially eliminating programs such as Camp Hickory, school-sponsored field trips, and even enrichment activities such as the award-winning robotics program, all of which have been suggested as potential solutions to address increased funding pressures and declining student enrollment. However, the more that these programs are discussed, the more difficult it becomes for parents and community members to engage in constructive conversations to seek alternative solutions. The process of understanding the proposals is very time-consuming, often frustrating, and as the lack of clear and concise information does persist. Not that there aren't reports, but just that they can sometimes be challenging to get through. Recently, I attended a public hearing regarding the constant yield tax rate, where proposals from the Garrett County government were presented in an effort to fund blueprint requirements and capital improvement projects by increasing property taxes, especially for our second homeowners. Unfortunately, most of the public comments that were made during the hearing were riddled with misinformation and misunderstanding of the current situation facing our school system. While we cannot force people to pay attention or to show up for themselves or their neighbors, we can make a more concerted effort to ensure that the information that they need to be well informed is readily available and communicated clearly. Leading up to the March Board of Education meeting, we anticipated Superintendent Baker would be making a recommendation regarding the potential school closures of Swan Meadow and Route 40. That recommendation was delayed until the April meeting, made just moments before a vote would occur. Several moments, but moments. The recommendation held crucial information that, if had been presented in March, could have affected the outcomes. Perhaps parents and community would have felt differently. Perhaps they would have researched and inquired about our alternatives. But for you being forced to make a snap decision with not a lot of time for the public to provide input on the specifics of the recommendation, I do want to state that I'm very grateful, and I believe that the community is very grateful that those schools will remain open and that we do have an opportunity moving forward to try to figure out how to get the situation under control. So anyway, a little frazzled at the end because I had to cross out my conclusion, but I do appreciate everything that you all have done to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Michelle Hetrick, budget transfers.
Make this short and sweet because my phone's about to die with my speech on. Okay. So, if food services has extra money to keep transferring money out of, then they could upgrade the food the kids are getting because the quality isn't there. It's a huge problem. Students are given powder red sugar donuts and chocolate muffins for breakfast with few fresh, healthy options. Raise the quality or lower the price, but don't take money from our children they could certainly use. We parents don't pay for school lunches for our children just for the board to purchase other things with the funds by asking for transfer requests. $54,000 for an elevator in a building not owned by GCPS is not a good use of our money. We want teachers. Utilize the money better by moving the central office out of the building and into a building or buildings owned by GCPS. As far as student health services, sped money, wouldn't a full-time nurse be the goal for all schools, especially for the elementary schools? The Board of Education has a full-time nurse, so how about cut that position and stop taking money from children that could use it, plus some. Yet we want to transfer, take $25,000 from the health services So we're literally taking the money from the children to get you all an elevator in a building that GCPS doesn't even own. Just making sure I'm getting that right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Jonathan Yoder, Swan Meadow Staffing and Charter School.
So good evening. So at the last board meeting, the board voted to keep Route 40 and Swan Meadow School open, at least until the new superintendent decides to do otherwise. And we thank you very much for that decision. However, I do believe that the plan that is in place for staffing, for teachers, is very much less than ideal. And I believe that it will not maximize the education of our students. And I ask that you would reconsider that plan and try to find a solution for that. At the last meeting, Mr. Glodfeldy indicated that there needs to be or could be more discussion with the community as far as a private school / charter school. We as a community are very open to that discussion. We believe that a charter school could be the starting point of that discussion. And so I'm publicly asking, inviting, requesting that discussion. And however, I don't know how that'll work out or how that will be facilitated or could be, but we very much desire that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. I know the superintendent has a couple of comments that she wants to make, and I don't know if part of it's about charter schools or not, but we do have some authorities on charter schools. We have one who worked to start one, and we have a person who supervised looking at one, and we have another person, Dr. Wilderson, was involved as well in reviewing a charter school application. So I will defer all of those questions to our experts, as I know very little about charter schools.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a couple comments, mostly to clarify a couple of things Dr. Paul asked me to clarify, and I will briefly do my best to clarify the charter school. We do have a policy and procedure regarding charter schools, but unless something is changed that I'm not aware of, the school board, the superintendent, does not convert a school to a charter school. In the case of what Mr. Woods was referring to, the last time we had an application, the school had closed, and then a community group, a parent group, can decide that they want to submit a charter school application. Now, please don't quote me on this because I don't have all the facts right in front of me. However, like I said, unless something is changed, it's not a matter of converting, and then the school system would be responsible for some oversight, but the charter school, should that happen, would be at its own entity. It wouldn't be considered one of Garrett County schools, although there would be some, like I said, some funding from the overall budget would go to the charter school, and some oversight in some areas. So that's the best clarification I can give right now. I can certainly give more next month if the board wishes me to do so.
So yeah, there is a part of that there can be, so a current public school
could come out as a public as a public charter school. The application, though, it doesn't start with the board. It would start with the school, 85% of the school staff and 85% of the parents. So they could, but they would have to do the application, and it would have to show exactly what their model and their plan for the school is, exactly like Kitzmiller did in 2012. So the application, it would basically be the same process, but they would have to also show that they have that 85% on both of those as well. No, they would all be public school employees, but the charter school would have the ability to approve those employees. Yeah,
Right.
and those are considered public schools, but the oversight is by a board of that charter school, with some services provided by the board, but the money would flow to the charter school.
Can you tell me the policy? You have it pulled up in front of you.
Yeah, it's IHBHA.
And just two other brief clarifications. So I want to make sure that it's clear. The board has asked me the motion, the vote was not a one-year closure. The vote was to keep Swan Meadow School, Route 40 School open. I know there's been a lot of discussion and questions that we've received regarding, the process if it were to close at the end of next year, but that's not that wasn't the motion, and that's not what was voted on. It was voted on to keep both schools open. So I was asked to clarify that. And then, as Dr. Miller referenced, and I had several other people that said, there is a lot of information. There's absolutely a lot of information to read and to go through. All of that is on our website under the GCPS facility utilization and Gradeband. There are, I believe, all past presentations. We've put them all in a place for you to make it a little easier to at least find, but all of the presentations that are public presentations are on Board Docs. So if you had a question about something that didn't have anything to do with facility utilization, Gradeband, closure, if you just had a question about an out-of-area policy or the charter school, all of those policies are on Board Docs, and all of the presentations that we've made, you might have to look for them because they're by meeting, but they are all there.
Again, thank you, each of you who spoke, and certainly we appreciate your participation. Under policies and procedures, JKE, Student Behavior Intervention Policy and Procedure Revision. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, good evening. I'm here for the first reading of JKE, Policy and Procedure, Student Behavior Intervention. The reason I'm coming to you tonight is the state has made some mandates that we have to follow, so we needed to update our policy. I thought by this time the state would have a model policy with some of those mandates embedded into it that we could follow, but they have not. I still think in the future they'll probably come out with one, but a couple key points. As of July 1st of last year, we can no longer use seclusion in any public school. So that has been added in here. The House bill was added in there as well to state that. And also when it comes to reporting, the state now will be tracking if we would have students that would be restrained more than 10 times. In my year and a half plus in this position, we have not had a student close to that. We very rarely restrain a student because we use other techniques and interventions that we've discussed in previous meetings. So I think those were the main things that I just wanted to discuss and update with this policy and procedure.
Any questions? Okay, let's move on then to JKG, students arrested and charged with reportable offenses in the community policy and procedure. This is new.
Yes, this is a new policy for Garrett County Public Schools, and it comes out of House Bill 146, which is I have to now do an annual report, and one of those questions is, do you have a policy and procedure on reportable offenses? And we did not. So created one, leaned on the law and other counties' reportable offenses, and created this. More or less, if a student is outside of the school environment and does a reportable offense, and there's many things in there, it's very severe cases. We do not have many of these, if at all. I think I reported that we had 2, and they were both second-degree assaults actually in our school building that are SRO. So we didn't have any outside ones that happened this past year. But if they do, it gives us an ability to maintain a safe and orderly environment in our school, that if we felt like it was something extreme enough that we could ask the student to be in a different environment until the process was followed through.
First read, any questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Keep it rolling. KDB Public School Inquiries Policy and Procedure. This is a revision and new. May it be presented by Mr. Green.
Good evening. KDB, the public school inquiries, this relates to the MPIA requests and FOIA requests. Upon reviewing the policy, there was a few things that were outdated on this. We've updated to the current annotated code of Maryland, and in addition to that, on the inquiry part, it indicated our former website, so we have updated that to include the new website and email address to send this inquiry to. And the procedure piece of it, we had it spelled out on our website, but it was never actually a formal document, so we've put it into actual procedure here.
Questions about our KDB Public School Inquiries Procedure? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're back to the rest of the new business, and that is, to continuing business. That's the superintendent's proposed FY '24 operating budget. This is our first glance at our operating budget for the next school year and the anticipated revenues that we're going to have and the expenses that we're going to have to find a way to pay for. So, Ms. Schweitzer, the floor is all yours and the superintendent's.
Good evening. I wanted to start off this evening by reminding everyone that on our website, on Garrett County Public Schools website, we do have a landing page for the budget development process. We always have, and this year we really have tried to make the landing page much more robust. And we have snipped all of these presentations that we've done in public comment, in public session, and they're all there to be viewed by the public. So I just wanted to start out with that. Also, on the very opening landing page, there is direction to that page that will get you to the big, huge document that we are actually summarizing this evening. I believe it's 235 pages. So you also notice that it has a much different look about it this year. Thank you to Mark Green. He put in a lot of hard work to make sure that we built it out, and it is much more robust than it has been in prior years. So thank you. So just as we have with other presentations, we will be snipping this. So if you could please just wait until the end for questions, that would be helpful. Okay, so we've had significant budget challenges this year throughout this development process. Um, and when I looked back at last year's presentation and the year before that presentation, several of these bullet points were budgetary challenges in prior years as well. Our high inflation, where it is coming down now, it has peaked. We're projecting to see a 5 to 4%, where we peaked in FY21 at 7%, but that still presents challenges. The uncertainty of our facility utilization, what our aging infrastructure looks like, and what our footprint may be, certainly are challenges. This year, we have been in the heavy lift of implementing Blueprint for Maryland's Future, along with the weighted student funding. March 15th, under the direction of Dr. Miller, we did submit our initial Blueprint implementation plan. And then today, we have submitted our first review of that. So we are working diligently to implement the Blueprint. And unfortunately, we continue to see a decline in enrollment. And in the last census, the county has also seen a decline in our population. When we look at the 9/30 or the September 30th of 2021 count to September 30th of 2022, we were down 1.6%. It was roughly 54 students. And to date, we are also down another 46 students, which is 1.4%. So the decline continues. And we did just go through the exercise with the Maryland Department of Planning to true up our projections. And we were within 1% alignment out through 2032 with their projections. So we have already gone through that process. So just to give a high level of what we're talking about this evening, what the superintendent's proposed budget is, I shared this slide a couple meetings ago to give a high level overview of all of the different budgets, because it is confusing if this isn't what you do every day, and I recognize that. So the current expense fund is made up of the unrestricted budget, the unrestricted fund, the restricted fund, and student activity fund. What we're talking about this evening is the unrestricted fund. That's the superintendent's proposed budget. Within this document that you can get to electronically on the board website, you'll also see the school construction fund and the food service fund. This year, during the budget development process, we made a concerted effort to align this process with all of the planning that was occurring with the Blueprint implementation, the school closure advisory committees, and the Northern Area Gradeband alignment discussions. We received a lot of stakeholder input, a lot of robust feedback, and we appreciated that. Unfortunately, because of the late decision, the April 11th decision to keep schools open, a lot of time had already passed, and we're presenting this evening a short-term solution for this operating budget. Prior to April 11th, we were planning to utilize over $844,000 worth of savings to balance our budget. Unfortunately, after that evening, we did go back and as a cabinet, as a lead team, we did discuss several options. Over the course of the spring, staff has shared different cost saving measures with the elected board. Pay to play, eliminating student transportation that's not required, eliminating Hickory Environmental Education Center, redistricting, robotics. We felt that any of those cuts at this time would be unfounded. We would not have adequate public input, time for public comment. So at this time, we are offering a short-term solution with this budget. So we'll start with the estimated revenue. The revenue presentation was a recorded presentation due to the late nature of the March meeting, as well as the horrible weather that was happening that evening. So some of you may not have been able to see that. But this is a presentation, this is a model that I've used for a couple years now to try to provide stakeholders with an overall change in our revenue. So we start with, on the left, the FY23 unrestricted revenue, and then we add in the amounts that we are receiving above and beyond the prior year. We subtract anything that was reduced, and then we land on what the revenue will be for FY24. This year, we're fortunate enough to receive an increase in our state aid of $1,369,929. We are hopeful that the county government will provide a hold harmless or flat funding to Garrett County Public Schools and the Board of Education in FY24. However, the minimum amount that they are required to provide is over $232,000 less. We're recommending, the superintendent is recommending this evening that we use $500,000 of fund balance, unassigned fund balance, as additional revenue to balance the budget. Fund balance policy DFAB we would be in compliance with that fund balance by about $348,000. And though the whole premise of the fund balance policy is in very wide terms is to maintain compliance between 45 days and 60 days of cash flow. So that we would be in compliance for 45 days, not 60 days, but we are still in compliance. Please also note that in the school construction fund, Fund 03, we are proposing that $50,000 worth of fund balance would be used for 2 different projects. So here's another look at our revenue in totality. Our largest amount of revenue, our largest percentage of revenue is coming from Garrett County government, followed by the state of Maryland. And then you'll see that the only difference from the March presentation is that addition of the $500,000 worth of fund balance, as well as flat funding from the county. Again, if we do not receive the level funding, we would be short $232,674. Here we're showing a summary of Blueprint revenue programs side by side. It's important for all stakeholders to note that while these revenue programs are state mandated, by law, the local money is providing the match or the local share. As we flip from being a maintenance of effort county to being a local share county, What that means is that all of the revenue that we're receiving from the county is effectively a match to these state revenue programs, absent of that $232,000. Under this model, our special education revenue is not robust enough to cover all of our required services to our special education students. And it is important to note that the Individuals with Disabilities Act does require the state and the local education association to meet certain thresholds of services to students in order to maintain our eligibility for our federal funding as well. We're also short on the transportation spend. There is no local match to transportation. The funding that we received from the state is the only earmarked funding for transportation at this time. So in summary of this slide, in this budget year for FY25, in the unrestricted budget, 88.9% of that budget, of those revenues, are going to be held to the compliance of the Blueprint revenue programs, which means that the minimum of 75% per program must follow the student to the school in which he or she attends.
Okay, so on this slide, thanks to Mrs. Schweitzer for articulating some of the challenges and really looking at the revenue and our wish to use some fund balance until we have some further information. But we did come up with budget initiatives, and as I've said many times, and Mrs. Schweitzer said as well, we start developing the budget for the next fiscal and school year almost as soon as this budget is approved for the upcoming year. September and October, we have a lot of internal meetings. Then through October, November, December, we meet with the principals. Then we come back and meet as a cabinet team and a lead team, which is the instructional team, and develop initiatives based on all of that feedback. And these really, these budget initiatives support the defined mission, vision, and goals of the Garrett County Board of Education, as well as the ESSA plan, all of our plans and goals moving forward. This budget proposal does include, and all three of these are extremely important, but they aren't the only initiatives of the budget, of course, but they are the three main initiatives. And the first is accelerating academic achievement. I believe that we have seen some very significant growth, particularly in some areas, some areas that we had not seen as much growth. But it is imperative to continue to meet the students where they are and continue to accelerate their academic achievement while still being in compliance, as Mrs. Schweitzer said, with all of the components of the Blueprint plan. This does include intervention, enrichment, credit recovery, summer programming. And what we do in this budget and what we have done, I believe, in every budget that since in the 7 years that I've been superintendent, is really try to do our best to braid our unrestricted funds with the restricted federal and state funding to try and get as much bang for our buck in every single school so that we can continue to accelerate our academic achievement. The second initiative, as we just passed the 3-year anniversary, and I believe they said was, it's no longer considered a pandemic, but we are continuing to see students coming to us with severe social and emotional needs. So the next bullet, we have tried very hard for this budget to address social and emotional well-being. We have talked many, many times in public sessions about students with significant behavioral needs, and we are still seeing that. What we've really seen an increase in, Mr. Hummel and I talk frequently about this, is the students who are coming to us with other mental health needs. And so we're trying to address in this budget the mental health needs with increased behavioral support and an emphasis on professional development and support so that we can build that capacity in our teachers so that they can help us to meet those needs of our students who are struggling with mental health issues. And again, we've done our best, or we try to braid the unrestricted funds with the restricted federal and state funding. And then finally, moving Garrett County Schools forward by continuing to build instructional excellence, addressing all of the capital improvements. And we have heard the public comments this evening about some of the capital needs in our school system, implementing the board's strategic facilities plan, which we continue to reference, and then continuously improving the efficiencies of central support. And I think that goes towards building that capacity of our administrators and our teachers so that our support can be more efficient from the central level as well.
So with that, we'll go into the expenditures. So in the proposed budget, this is the high level or overarching changes of the proposed expenditures. Again, it's the same format. We start with on the left-hand side, the FY23 total amount of expenditures. In this budget, we are proposing an addition of $2,469,929. It's made up of contractual salary increases, blueprint requirements, inflationary increases, and then compensation, parameter, and health insurance placeholder. The contractual salary increases are due to the minimum wage increases that we are facing in the state of Maryland, as well as our staff that receives educational increases or longevity increases that are already part of the negotiated agreements. The blueprint requirements is the highest increase at $1,300,642. That is made up of primarily teacher salary increase requirements, as we are required to be approaching $60,000 for our starting salaries and prove that we've provided a 10% increase since 2019. There's also an increase of $212,142 that is required to be transferred to the Workforce Development Committee. There's college and career readiness spending, new spending of $128,000 that's required. And national board certification increases are $38,000. Our inflationary increases of $147,816 primarily lie in our insurance, liability, property, vehicle, cyber. All of the insurance has increased, as well as transportation. The compensation perimeter and placeholder increase also increase it's $887,471, and in that is $150,000 increase for retiree benefits. For pieces that we've taken out of the budget or out of the expenditures, there's $600,000 there. We're proposing to completely eliminate the food service transfer of $220,000. As of 6/30 of 2022, the food service fund did have a fund balance of over $1 million. At this rate, the fund is using about $400,000 worth of fund balance a year to balance their budget. And there is actually a placeholder within their budget of $367,000 in FY24. Mr. Germain and I believe that in FY25, the fund will also be able to utilize fund balance. But in FY26, the current expense fund will be required to subsidize the food service operations unless there's some significant change. The lab salary decrease of $380,000 is a budgeted amount based upon 40 staff members retiring or separating service. And basically lab salary, we talk about lab salary a lot, and in this case, what lab salary means is when a person retires or leaves Garrett County Public Schools and we replace the position with a person who receives a lower amount of compensation. And that's how we get to the $54,590,317. On this slide, we have a high-level overview of the expenditures by category. Instruction is the largest dollar amount to increase. That's primarily driven by salary. You do see that there's a negative variance of health services. That's due to the proposed transfer of nursing positions to restricted sources. The operation of plant has an increase of just shy of 5%, and that is driven by the insurance inflationary increase. And then in that fixed charge line, you do see the $150,000 to cover the increase in retiree benefits. This is also the category view in a pie chart. And when you compare last year and the percentages, we are seeing increased percentage of our budget in instruction, 40.7%. It remains the largest percentage by category. We are seeing a decrease in mid-level administration and also administration. And we are also seeing a decrease in fixed charges. So. Now we have a high-level overview of the expenditures by object. Salaries are the largest driver of the increase. There is a pretty significant decrease in supplies and materials, and that is due to a transfer of funding that occurred in FY23. The lead team made a conscious decision to transfer budget funds to textbooks for a one-time instructional resource refresh. In FY24, we have returned all of those funds back to the sources that basically lent them for a year. And those sources include CTE, staff development, as well as the school allocation that the principals have the autonomy to work with. Now, it's important to note that the principals did not go without. We supplemented with federal restricted funds so that they still had access to funding, but it was a different source. Then at the bottom of this slide, we do have the pie chart here, and as we've discussed in prior public presentations, Salaries and fixed charges are our largest expense. We are a people business, and salaries have increased from almost a full percentage point as part of our budget. Supplies and materials are down, contracted services down, and other charges are down. So one other note of the going back to budgetary challenges, we want to reiterate that 88.9% of the unrestricted revenue is required to comply with the blueprint requirements. So as we've spoken before, under blueprint, the money must follow the student to the school in which he or she attends. We're required to spend, to budget, to spend, and then report that a minimum of 75% per blueprint revenue program was spent at the school level. This faces the biggest challenge for Garrett County Public Schools right now. And the reason is because our largest 3 schools have always provided the most efficiencies and the economies of scale. And they've been able to provide us the flexibility to spend at other schools in an equal manner. Underweighted student funding, we're shifting to an equity model. So this new requirement has required the lead team, the cabinet, and the principals to work collaboratively on our staffing plans. Every principal has had multiple meetings to discuss what their staffing will look like, how they can use the people in their building, because again, they have to comply with the requirements of that program, the revenue program. So Garrett County Public Schools has been able to smooth some of the effects of implementing this weighted student funding by utilizing federal ARP-ESSER as well as Maryland LEADS funding. But it's important to note that there are 30 positions right now that are in those sources. So we will begin working on this funding cliff and what it's going to look like. We did plan strategically on some of the positions to switch some things that we believe will happen in the future with other restricted sources to be able to set ourselves up for some success there. But then there are going to be many very difficult decisions because of some of the programs right now that are being funded with those restricted funds. So just as Dr. Miller stated in her presentation, we will begin the FY25 budget development just as soon as we have an approved FY24 budget. Just like I said at the beginning of the presentation, we will present in public session with opportunity for all stakeholders to make comment and to hear the plans, a full analysis of what the funding cliff is going to look like, what our options may be with student transportation or redistricting, what secondary programs we may have, and where our students may be receiving their instruction. What does pay to play look like in Garrett County Public Schools? And is Hickory Environmental Center sustainable? Plus, whatever else the new interim superintendent would like to take a deep dive into. But the bottom line is that in FY25, we are looking at a $6.1 million gap right now. The good news is that MSDE has taken a proactive approach, and they are going to be releasing some estimated revenue updates in August. They are planning to hold some technical assistance briefings. This is not just a Garrett County Public Schools issue, but as school systems move to the local share, it makes it much more difficult when schools are not the same size. And so difficult decisions will have to be made. However, we must spend equitably at the larger schools to meet that 75% requirement. So next steps. This proposed budget, the superintendent's proposed budget, will be available for the next month. Visit gcps.net. If there are any comments, please email them to public.info@gcps.net. There are some upcoming public meetings. Just as I saw my friend Tara Crawford at the Constant Yield meeting, I will also be attending the May 16th County FY23 budget presentation. On June 5th, the county is scheduled to adopt its FY24 comprehensive budget. And our hope is that on June 13th, the Board of Education will adopt its operating budget. There will also be opportunity for public comment at 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock on that evening. So I will now take any questions that the board has.
Sure, there will be a few. I'll start with one. Can you give us a general number as to the amount of ESSER funds we've used to smooth next year's budget that will no longer be available in 2025? For those of you that perhaps, those are federal funds that we got as a result of the pandemic, that everybody in the nation got, and everybody in the nation's same problem, and those funds run out this year. Those are funds that we've been fortunate to do things in Garrett County we could have never afforded to do. They were wish list items that we could never do. But for 3 years, we've been able to do those things. Now it's time to pay for it.
Yes, so we are estimating that it will be $4,727,860.
So 4.7 million less dollars than we're dealing with this year. With a $6.1 million gap that you've identified, which doesn't include what will salary increases be for the following year, because we don't know what those would be.
Well, that does increase. That includes. The
that's your estimate?
6.1 includes
Okay.
a placeholder for salary to keep pace to reach
the
the
basic model
60,000.
we have. Okay.
Yes.
So it's a $6.1 million hole that we're facing. I know a lot of people left, but that's, in a nutshell, a huge problem for Garrett County schools. Other counties have taken a different approach. Montgomery County, they had huge needs, so they raised their real estate taxes by 10%. Everybody in the county pays 10% more, pays for their blueprint needs. Don't anticipate that in Garrett County.
Just a question on the ESSA, the 4 million, whatever, 100,000 you said. Where's that shown on the revenue? Does that come through the state funding? Because the federal funding is only at the 120,000. So how's that? Where does that show on revenue side?
So on page 23, it has the restricted estimated revenue.
On the budget book. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we did present this a little differently than we have in the past because of the blueprint revenue programs. On page 22, we provided the state share and then the local share for unrestricted. We provided the total on page 22 for unrestricted. Then on page 23, we have the restricted revenue at the top with the total of $9,840,955. And then below that is the school activity portion of the current expense fund.
Thanks. That answers my question.
Yeah.
Rodney?
This might not, this isn't a question, but this is a comment. Dealt a bad hand of cards. You try to do the best you can with what you have in your hand. And that's trying to deal with the requirements that the blueprint has imposed upon Garrett County. Local jurisdiction. Put your finger on the problem that we're having in the way we distribute money to the schools in Garrett County. We have the larger schools that had economy of scales that were able to provide good education for the students. Now we're being forced to move money from the smaller schools that we were overspending on, but it was needed because of their number of students that we had in those schools. So I guess, you know, what I'm going to continue to work on with MABE and with our legislators and people downstate is to try to correct some of these problems and deficiencies that have really causing us big problems in Garrett County and causing other jurisdictions big problems. And don't know that we can be successful. We can try, but you know, it's not a criticism of what you're doing. You're doing the best you can with the cards you were dealt. But doesn't mean we can't give up on trying to push back on some of these things. That's the only comment I have.
Questions, anyone? I know you gave us a detailed proposal of changes by activity. Okay, so I know we all have that to look at between now and our next meeting, so that we can kind of look and see where some changes have taken place. Being old-fashioned, I asked for the paper product so that I could make my own notes, and I did go through that last night for a couple of hours, and it is depressing, to be honest with you. It's depressing when I look at what was, what will be, anticipating what's yet to come. When you read that, it's a difficult situation that we're going to have to face. So I do thank you for the updates. It's very helpful for all of us to look at those things. I'm sure, as always, would encourage board members, if you have questions about anything in the budget, try to get those questions to the superintendent and to Allison as quickly as possible. They'll try to answer those to us as quickly as possible so that when we come to the next meeting, we've got at least most of our questions, if not all of our questions, answered, so that we can, it is an action item. We must approve it next month. So certainly have all the questions that you might have for both superintendent and Schweitzer.
One thing I had to address as far as staffing plans, I think some understanding of you know, how those staffing plans work, and if board decided those in executive session behind closed doors, we don't do that. But those staffing plans are not actually a board decision. That comes based on the superintendent and her staff in consultation with the principals and the blueprint now, looking at the weighted funding for what comes in there. And so I think just to clarify where those staffing decisions come from is based on those factors. And the board, we hire the superintendent, Barb in this case, and she's the one who then works with her staff to make those. But that's not a plan
Correct.
that we've made behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's a good point. By law, we only have three things we do. We hire a superintendent, we approve a budget, we make policies. We do not make staffing changes. We do not make many things by law we're not allowed to make. Those are in the purview of the superintendent and only the superintendent. So, clarification. Thank you, Matthew. Anything else?
I just want to, we've talked about the collaboration that goes into this budget. I want to thank Mrs. Schweitzer, certainly her finance team, the cabinet, which is the directors, the lead team, which is the instructional directors and supervisors, the principals who had a tremendous amount of input. If Mrs. Schweitzer hadn't started planning for the weighted funding 2 or 3 years ago, we would not be this far ahead. She also, I'm usually the one that has a tear in my eye and choked up because it's so hard. And I hope that those of you that are still here, you may not have heard it or seen her, but these decisions and what we know is coming, and we will all, I think, Mr. Glaufeldi and I will continue even in my retirement to pay attention and to help in any way I can to advocate to our leaders as well about how it impacts Garrett County. But these what we're facing is incredibly hard, and you may not all agree with the plans that we put forth, and we certainly understand that, but when you're looking at the kind of numbers, we were trying to plan forward, and I know the board understands that, but the decisions are hard, and it's, I just want to say that we certainly have presented as much information as possible. I encourage everyone to go to the landing page and look at all of the budget information, because there are a lot of things that are going to be changing as a result of the blueprint, and many other things, and these aren't easy for any of us.
One final comment.
Sure.
I'm just full of comments today. Really have one more meeting, but I did watch the constant yield hearing as well, and I think there is a lot of misunderstanding in the community about the funding and the decisions. I mean, the commissioners have to give us that money no matter what. It doesn't have anything to do with how we're spending the money or not. That amount is being dictated, the increase that they're looking at and why they're looking at making the decisions they're making on education funding. It is not necessarily the decisions of this board, but it is what's being mandated by the state that is dictating those decisions. And so I think that is both to say they have to do that, but there was a lot of conversation about keeping us accountable for spending and all that. And, hey, we're all for that. Keep us accountable. But the other side of that is that those decisions are independent of that amount that they have to give us. And so that decision that they have to make, which is also a tough decision on taxes, is based on the state mandated count in the blueprint. And so if you're unhappy with those, then that is another reason to talk with our state representatives.
Okay. So much for the doom and gloom, unfortunately. Thank you, Allison, and thank your staff for all the work. Because I know it's got to be incredibly stressful, but we're incredibly thankful as well. Our next new business item is our student handbook. It's a draft, 23-24. And if you've got nothing to do on a winter night, I strongly encourage you to read 200 pages of how we manage students in our school system.
Quite exciting, I might say. Actually, you should read it at the beginning of the year when we hand it out. So, but come tonight with the first read of the updated student handbook for next school year. There are some minor changes, actually 3 that I just want to discuss. One is based on a House bill, student attendance, excused absences for mental health needs. We will now have a process that if a student is out for mental health needs, that we can excuse those based on what's in the handbook. Also, I have updated based on the policy we talked earlier about reportable offense to make that mirror the policy language and everything, so I've updated that in the handbook. And the last thing, talking to Mr. Wazlowski with bus transportation, we kind of mirrored a level system for consequence discipline based on student behavior on the bus to look like it does in the school building. So hopefully that will be more consistent, not only in the building, but also on the bus with trying to change student behavior on the bus.
Questions about the draft of the student handbook? It is first read, certainly encourage, was there a question?
Yeah, I look,
Okay, go, I'm sorry, but you said you're fine.
I
Yours
think this is still working. So on the buses, you have one person that's in charge of driving the bus and discipline and seeing what's going on and making sure that order's provided, right? And that's the school bus driver, right?
There are some assistants on some
Are
buses.
there assistants on the bus?
Correct.
Okay, that's my question, because I thought it's going to be impossible for one guy to do, or one lady to do all that.
Yeah, on some, not all buses, but I wouldn't be able, Mr. Wazlowski.
Mr. Wazlowski's back there. What, you have a percentage? Okay, 15 of 59.
Oh, that's not too good.
Yeah, we have cameras and
You got cameras.
Video on all buses.
So somebody, if there's an infraction of whatever the student did, that's reported to the student, and it goes through the normal disciplinary procedures. which are
yeah,
outlined.
the school administration would handle it, provide due process,
Okay.
ask the student what was happening, and try to change the behavior, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions about the handbook?
And I will mention that I will update based on decisions with names and everything else. Since this is the first read, we have some time on that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. It's the first read. Will be an action item next month. Thank you for the work. And I served on that committee many years when I was both a teacher and a principal, and how hard that is every year to look at all the new laws that have changed.
We were lucky this year, not too many changes, so probably not going to be that lucky with things coming forward, so.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Budget transfer request, an action item.
Okay, we're here this evening requesting the board approve a budget transfer for 3 different items. The first one is digital display replacement. We are proposing to replace all of the interactive boards at Yacht Glades and Crellin. This would jumpstart the replacement cycle for our IT department. We believe this proactive approach will helpfully save money in the FY24 budget with breakage and replacements that may not have been planned. That's there's $40,000 that's required for that. The second item is for vehicle fleet replacement. In FY23, in order to balance the budget, we made the decision to not add back in the vehicle refresh budget amount. So at this time, we are requesting to replace both of the high school Durangos. Those 2 Durangos would then move into the maintenance fleet, and then there would be 2 maintenance fleet vehicles that would be traded in. So the fleet would not be increasing, it was really just a replacement. And then there's a request for $80,000 to move to maintenance. That's for a replacement of a utility truck. And then the old one would be disposed of. The last item is an emergency repair to the elevator at 40 South 2nd Street. In a nutshell, I'm told that the mechanical unit that drives the elevator is done. So it is $54,000. We are required, per the agreement that we have with the county, to to maintain that building. And we are out of compliance with ADA requirements at this time. We're recommending that we transfer $124,000 from instructional salaries, $115,000 from special education, and $25,000 from student health services. It's important to note that all of these expenses are one-time in nature. Unfortunately, the funding that we're taking from is lab salary. As we get to the end of the fiscal year, we are seeing that either positions were vacated early or there were reasons why the whole budgeted salary was not paid out. And that's why we are recommending these transfers. There have not been any services withheld from students or positions that have not been filled in order to be able to make these transfers. Are there any questions?
Well, we need a recommendation from
Oh,
the
sorry.
superintendent first.
Right, I just have a couple of comments before I make the recommendation, in case those of you that are still here were unable to hear. These are one-time only costs that we can do a budget transfer, that we've had, a couple of public comments about why it's not spent here or there, and most of those have been on things that are next year's budget ongoing expenses. We did have a public comment this evening about the elevator. If you didn't hear Mrs. Schweitzer, we are out of ADA compliance. We must be in ADA compliance. We are a public building. I questioned when the elevator went bad as well, but we have no way to get to a couple of the floors without the elevator. So anybody that has unable to go up the stairs, we would be out of compliance. I am recommending that we approve the budget transfer, but I did want to let the board know that we can also, at some juncture, we will be turning that building back to the commissioners, and I'm sure they would want a working elevator. So we will be sending a letter to the county commissioners asking to pay for that, for the elevator. I'm not sure what they'll say, but we can certainly ask. But in case that is not approved by the commissioners, I would recommend this evening that you approve the budget transfer until I can get an answer. We need to make sure that we get back in compliance with that in the central office building.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the budget transfer as presented to us?
Make a motion that we approve the budget transfer as presented.
Motion by Jason to approve budget transfer as presented. Second?
Yes, I'll second, but I do want us to try really hard to get the money for the elevator repair, because I'm not sure that it's under routine maintenance.
Right, and what Mr. Gladfeld is referring to in our lease agreement, we are required to provide maintenance of the building, routine maintenance, I guess, and I can certainly stress that fact in my correspondence with the commissioners, that it's not something we ever anticipated having to replace. So you're right.
Yeah, and I think it's, sorry. I think it's important to clarify our relationship to that facility. So we're under a lease, I think it's $1 a year, and that building is actually owned by the county commissioners. And so we agree to do the maintenance within the building, but we only pay that $1 for the use of the building. So sometimes there's misunderstanding that the bank owns it and we're paying them or something. That's not what's happening. The county owns that building. And so we are looking at where central office should be located, these kind of decisions. And that's why the board is strongly suggesting to the commissioners that they might want to look at this, because we would be turning the building over to them if we leave.
Any other questions about the budget transfer?
Just one point of clarification. It's been brought up, I think, before by the public, but Who has priority of the vehicles as far as student use and use by central office?
Sure. The two Dodge Durangos that Mrs. Schweitzer referenced, we have one at Northern Garrett, one at Southern Garrett. It is listed as student transportation. Any student group that requests the use of the Durango for a maybe JROTC needs 4 or 5 students to go to a competition and they don't need a large bus. It's been quite a cost savings for those types of things. Sometimes the wrestlers only have 3 or 4 students that go down to the competitions. And so students have all absolute priority for those 2 vehicles at both Southern and Northern. If the vehicle is not being used and we have a trip, somebody at the central office or supervisor has a trip downstate, we can reserve the vehicle, but right up until the day of the trip, if a student group then says, oh wait, we had something come up that we now qualify for, the priority goes to the student transportation and the supervisor would have to find some other, either we would pay mileage or find another vehicle to take. So the priority has been and will continue to be on student transportation for any need that the high school deems they are authorized to use it.
Yeah, I think there was a misconception that we were adding to our fleet, but we're actually rotating our fleet, much as you and I rotate our fleets in our driveways as well. So it's the same idea. Anything else? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to accept the proposed budget. It's presented to us, transfer budget as presented to us. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And the budget transfer is approved. Okay, ratification of all bargaining group contracts. This is an action item.
This evening, I would like to first thank all of the members of the bargaining units, all 4 of the units, AFT, which is with custodian cafeteria managers, GCEA's Unit 1 and 3, and the GASA, which are the administrators. Thank you to all that work together to collaborate to have mutual agreements. As of right now, the AFT, head custodian cafeteria managers, and the GASA unit, which are the administrators, they have ratified their contracts. So we do have that for Mrs. Baker and Mr. Woods to sign. As of now, GCEA, they had their ratification meetings last week. Ballots will go out tomorrow to ratify the contract. So again, we want to thank everybody for their collaboration in these efforts.
Sorry. We were talking about whether we should do these separately or as a group,
Okay.
and I've been advised we should do each separately.
Okay.
A motion and a vote each.
Okay. So the first is for AFT, head custodian and cafeteria managers, to ratify that contract.
Mm-hmm. So do you have a
Right.
recommendation?
Yes, absolutely recommend that we approve the ratification of the AFT contract.
Is there a motion to approve the ratification of the AFT contract?
I make a motion to approve the
Motion by
AFT.
Matthew, second. Second by Josh. Any discussion? There is no discussion since it's a personnel matter. So we'll vote right away for this one, and we'll move on to the others. Those in favor of ratification of the AFT contract, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And AFT is ratified. Okay.
The second is for the GASA, which is the administrator's contract.
I recommend that we approve the Garrett County Administrator and Supervisor's contract, ratify that.
Okay, Superintendent's asking that we ratify the GASA contract. Is there a motion as such?
Motion to approve the GASA contract.
Motion by Matthew,
Second.
seconded by, is that Josh? Seconded by Josh. All those in favor of ratifying the GASA contract presented to us, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And GASA is ratified.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Wilderson.
Yes.
And Dr. Miller, our attorney Brandon, and Ms. Schweitzer. As you are a negotiating team, we thank you for the long hours you put in,
Yes.
long meetings you put in, and certainly everything you did to both be fair to our employees, but also fair to us as well as the people paying for it. So thank you for all that you've done. Appreciate it. Okay, we have one more bit of business, I think. Up there. We did, as we said in the agenda, we did change from an interim superintendent update to an interim superintendent decision, action item tonight. We as a board have certainly taken this under a lot of discussion as to what direction should we as a board go for this one-year interim position. It is a position that will be from July 1 of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. And, certainly it's not often that we hire superintendents, whether 1 year or 4 year. So there was a lot of discussion as to what we wanted to do, but I do feel that we have come to a place where we have identified a person, and we'll see if that identification goes through this evening. So having said that, I will open for any motions to be made regarding an interim superintendent's position.
Move that we appoint Dr. Brenda McCartney to serve as our interim superintendent of schools from July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, contingent upon the mutual agreement of contract terms and the approval of the state superintendent of schools.
Okay, the motion, I'm gonna recite it, not word for word, but the motion is to. Okay, would you care to say it one more time, Josh, a little louder so that we can get it recorded?
Yep, I move that we appoint Dr. Brenda McCartney to serve as the interim superintendent of schools from July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, contingent upon the mutual agreement of contract terms and the approval of the state superintendent of schools.
Second.
Okay, the motion on the floor has been appoint Dr. Brenda McCartney as interim superintendent from July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, contingent upon mutual agreement of contract terms and the approval of the state superintendent of schools. All those things have to happen in order for a superintendent to be appointed. There has been a second by Matthew. So there is a motion to.
By Mr. Gladfeldy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
It's
you
okay. I would have made the second.
Yeah, well, you can. Go ahead.
I did too. I thought.
It's okay.
Second. Okay, the second was by Mr. Gladfeldy. So we have a motion on the floor in a second. We'll have a vote. We'll make it a roll call vote since it is the hiring of a superintendent's position. We will start and just go left to right, I suppose. Karen, can you hear the votes, Karen? You'll be able to hear them. Okay, Josh?
Yay.
Yay? Mr. Gladfeldy?
Yay.
Yay? Dr. Paul?
Yay.
And Mr. Van Sickle?
Yay.
It is a unanimous vote by the board to hire Dr. McCartney, pending, obviously, our negotiations and approval by the state superintendent for a one-year interim beginning July 1 and ending June 30th, 2024. So we hope that we can make that transition very smooth with the superintendent. I know we've talked, and she is more than willing to ensure that the transition is seamless from start to finish, and we appreciate her willingness to help with that, because that's a huge transition for someone to come in cold into a lot of things that I'm sure have changed since Dr. McCartney was involved in the school system, like myself many years ago. So we look forward to working with her and working with the challenges that we have ahead, and see perhaps she has ideas that perhaps we've not explored. So with that being said, we will do any board member updates. Yes, Chase?
Yes, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank. We had a few schools that took up myself and a few of our colleagues to come in and teach children how to save. Crellin Elementary School, Yawk Glades, Accident Elementary School, and Grantsville Elementary School accepted those invitations. We had a great time with the kids, got to do some math and actually kind of use that skill a little bit in real life. So that was a lot of fun with those kids. Also wanted to thank the community members, staff members, and parents. I was able to assist with the Northern Garrett after prom, both unfortunately in the decoration, which not my strong point, as well as in the evening activity. So really appreciate everyone that participated both at Southern and Northern to put on those events for the high school students.
I got to accompany Team 1629 GACO to the World Championship in Houston, Texas. Actually got to drive their equipment down with Mr. Chuck Troutwine, and the team did very well down there, represented the school system very well, got inducted to the first Robotics Hall of Fame, which is, I think there are 34 teams out of 3,800 worldwide. So it's a huge accomplishment for the robotics team. And the robot performers did very well, and they also won another award at the world level, the Sustainability Award. So they continue to represent Garrett County very well.
Tonight or today, the board of directors of MABE is interviewing 5 candidates for the executive director position to replace Francie Glendenning. I was supposed to be at that interview, but I told him I would rather be with you all.
Yeah, sure. I did not know that Francie was retiring.
Yeah, she is retiring July 1st, and I think there's always the pre-screening of candidates has already occurred, so they came up with 5 candidates. And I haven't heard how the interviews went, but I'll let you know. Find out.
Matthew, anything? Okay.
I have one.
Yes, go ahead.
I attended the mock trial appreciation dinner on Sunday night, and they compete against a lot of other schools, the teams do, but of course the most challenging competition is always Northern Garrett versus Southern Garrett. And last year, Northern Garrett took home the trophy, and this year, Southern took home the trophy. And I just wanted to thank the Garrett County Bar Association for their support for our mock trial teams, and for hosting the appreciation dinner. It was very nice. And Judge Gregory talked about how students may not be thinking about their career, but certainly a law career in Garrett County can be very successful. And I said, I disagree. I think students should be thinking about what their career is if they're in high school. So it was a very nice evening, and I just want to make sure we thank the Bar Association for it. Oh, right. Yeah, I put a little bit of the notice in the at the beginning in the announcements, but tomorrow evening, the Maryland Teachers of the Year from, I'm not sure how many counties are coming, usually between 20 and 22 Teachers of the Year come. Not Allie Shilp that we recognize tonight, but the Teachers of the Year for this school year. And our Teacher of the Year for this school year is Amy Beeman from Southern Middle School. And we do all kinds of activities, from a boat ride to tours of Garrett County. Mr. Edwards on Friday gives a very nice history lesson of the Grantsville area and the Castleman River Bridge. And so we will welcome them to Garrett County, and Dr. Miller coordinates that with Glenna Wetzel's help. So it's always a very nice event, and good to have them back in person as well. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Jason.
I'll second that one.
Second by Matthew. All those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And we are adjourned.